Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your trusted source for the latest royal family news and updates. I'm your host, and today we bring you shocking developments from inside the palace walls. If you've been together this long, you probably have the right to ask for a ring worth waiting for. And when it comes to this, the royal family doesn't let anyone down. Camilla wore a huge diamond on her finger, and she was clearly very happy with it. But now, King Charles is angry. Really, really angry. And this time, he's not keeping quiet about it. News reports say he has kicked Camilla out of the palace and even made her give back her wedding ring. Their marriage has survived many years and many scandals. But it looks like things have finally reached a breaking point. People close to the palace say Charles has been getting more and more upset. And now he's making a decision that could change everything. Was this a sudden outburst? Or has the tension been building up for months? And what will happen to Camilla now? Before we continue, please subscribe to Royal Daily Report and hit the bell icon so you never miss our exclusive royal updates. Join us as we find out the truth behind this royal drama. King Charles and Queen Camilla's big fight for weeks. Things inside the palace didn't feel right. There was tension in the air, the kind that even the palace staff couldn't ignore. King Charles has always been someone who values order, tradition, and the careful image of the royal family. The British Queen gave her approval for Prince Charles's wife Camilla to be called Queen Consort. But lately, things have not been going the way Charles expected. And according to reports, that tension finally exploded in a way nobody saw coming. At the center of it all was Queen Camilla. She had been stepping into the spotlight more than usual, making appearances alone, giving speeches, and even talking to the press without following the usual rules. At first, it might not have seemed like a big deal to the public. But inside the palace, it was different. The royal family isn't just about tradition, it's about control. Everything is carefully planned, from what members say to how they present themselves. So when Camilla reportedly gave an interview without getting approval from the palace, it sent shockwaves through the royal household. But here's the shocking part. In that interview, she spoke openly about her role in the royal family, and even hinted at the future in ways that hadn't been discussed behind closed doors. It wasn't just her words, but the way she said them. Camilla's words in the interview were confident, maybe even bold and challenging, and they sent a clear message that she wasn't going to simply stand in the background. And according to people close to the situation, at that moment, everything changed. King Charles was furious. He had spent years preparing to be king, dealing with scandals, earning the public's trust, and trying to modernize the royal family while still keeping its traditions. And now it seemed like his own wife was going against the very institution he had worked so hard to protect. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report for more exclusive royal family news. And in a rare show of visible anger, Charles stood up and demanded that Camilla leave the palace immediately. He questioned her about the interview right away. His voice was sharp, and there was frustration in his tone. He wanted to know why she hadn't talked to him or the palace before making such bold statements. He wanted to understand why she was suddenly taking such an independent approach. Camilla, known for staying calm and composed, didn't back down. She stood her ground and defended her choices. She insisted that being Queen Consort didn't mean she had to stay silent. She argued that she had a role to play beyond just standing beside him. But Charles wasn't having it. To him, this wasn't only about an interview. It was about loyalty, trust, and the public image of the royal family. The argument got worse quickly, and Charles, who was usually controlled and calm, was suddenly overwhelmed with frustration. His face turned red, and his voice grew louder, echoing through the walls of the palace. Staff members outside the room froze in place. Some had worked there for decades, and they had never seen him like this before. But then something happened that left everyone shocked. In the heat of the moment, Charles reportedly did something no one expected. He demanded that Camilla return her engagement ring, and in this case, the royal family doesn't disappoint. Camilla wore a huge diamond on her finger, and she was clearly proud of it. This wasn't just any ring. It was a piece of royal history once belonging to his beloved grandmother, the Queen Mother. For years, it had been a symbol of their love, their struggles, and everything they had fought against to be together. For a second, Camilla didn't move, didn't speak. She just stared at him, as if trying to understand what he had just said. And then, with a quiet dignity that had always defined her, she slowly removed the ring from her finger. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't try to explain herself. Instead, she simply placed the ring on a nearby table, turned around, and began making arrangements to leave. That night, Windsor Castle was thrown into chaos. No one had expected this. Camilla, who had been by Charles's side through everything, was now packing her things. Her staff worked quickly, only gathering the essential items. There was no time for discussion, no time for questions. The weight of the moment was too heavy. Some of the staff fought back tears, unable to believe what they were seeing. Rather than waiting until morning, Camilla made the decision to leave Windsor Castle that very night. And by the time a royal vehicle arrived at the private entrance, Camilla was ready. Security footage from that evening allegedly captured Camilla leaving the palace in a royal vehicle, accompanied only by her most trusted laddie-in-waiting and a single protection officer. There was no grand exit and no farewell speeches. She simply stepped into the car, and without a word, the vehicle disappeared into the night. Inside the palace, Charles remained in his chambers. No one dared to approach him, but by morning, the royal household was in full crisis mode. Senior advisors were called in, emergency meetings were scheduled, and damage control became the priority. This was not just a personal argument, but a public relations nightmare. The royal family had already been under intense watch, and now this scandal threatened to shake its very foundation. Prince William and Princess Catherine were informed immediately, and they were in shock as they heard the news. William, in particular, was deeply troubled. He had always known his father carried the weight of the crown heavily. But this was different. This was personal. Meanwhile, the media had already started asking questions. Camilla was missing from her scheduled appearances. Reports surfaced about tensions within the palace. Rumors spread, and the press wanted answers. The palace had no choice but to look for ways to come up with a statement immediately. However, behind these closed doors, one question loomed over everything. Was this just a heated argument, or was this the beginning of the end for King Charles and Queen Camilla? Make sure to subscribe to Royal Daily Report and turn on notifications to stay updated on this developing story. Stay tuned as we look deeper into this, the road to Queen Consort, to understand the importance of these questions. We have to go back to the beginning, to the battles fought behind palace walls, the public resistance, and the careful steps Camilla had to take before she could stand beside Charles as his wife, let alone as Queen Consort. The love story between these two was anything but simple. Camilla had been in Charles's life long before she became his wife. She was the woman he had loved for decades, the one he had lost, and the one he had fought to bring back, despite the world watching and judging. But even after they made their relationship official, and she stepped into royal life, there was only one thing that symbolized her true place beside him more than anything else, and that was the wedding ring. That ring wasn't just jewelry. It was a silent message that she was no longer the outsider, no longer the scandal that had once shaken the royal family. It was a symbol of legitimacy, but it was one that came at a cost. However, back in the late 1990s, when their relationship was still a highly sensitive subject, the public wasn't ready to accept Camilla. The wounds from Charles and Diana's failed marriage were still fresh. Camilla was labeled as the other woman, the one who had played a role in breaking up the fairy tale marriage that millions had believed in. Diana had captured hearts across the world, and even in death, her influence remained powerful. Many saw Camilla as someone who didn't deserve to be in Charles's life, let alone in the royal family. But Charles saw things differently. To him, Camilla had been his true love long before he ever married Diana. He had loved her deeply, but circumstances had pulled them apart. In the royal world, duty often came before love. And back in the 1970s, Camilla had not been seen as a suitable bride for the future king. She had come from an aristocratic background, but she didn't have the pristine royal image that the monarchy wanted. So Charles had married Diana, and Camilla had married Andrew Parker Bowles. Even though they had gone their separate ways, their feelings never faded. And by the time the world learned of their affair, it was already a well-established secret within certain circles. However, Diana's famous interview where she stated, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." This only fueled public anger toward Camilla. But despite the backlash, Charles was not willing to let her go. When they rekindled their romance in the late 1990s, it wasn't easy. The media was relentless. Following Camilla's every move and examining every decision Charles made regarding their relationship, for years she was forced to stay in the background, avoiding public events and keeping a low profile to avoid further controversy. Even inside the palace, she wasn't fully welcomed. Furthermore, in 2002, Sir Michael Peet became Charles's private secretary, and one of his main tasks was to create distance between Charles and Camilla. Also, the Queen had never hidden her discomfort about Camilla, and she made it clear that their relationship was not something she approved of. To many in Buckingham Palace, Camilla was a liability. She was a reminder of the past, of scandal, and of the wounds that had not yet healed. But Charles refused to be pushed into a corner. He had already lost Camilla once, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. So when Pete realized that separating them was impossible, he changed his approach. Instead of trying to end their relationship, he focused on making it acceptable. That meant winning over key figures like the Queen, government officials, religious leaders, and most importantly, the British public. Camilla had to be slowly introduced into royal life in a way that would not create another wave of backlash. The transition had to be careful and deliberate, ensuring that by the time they married, people would be more accepting of her presence. However, winning the Queen's approval wasn't easy. The Queen had been firm in her stance, even refusing to acknowledge Camilla at public events. In 1998, she attended a party where Camilla was present, but made no effort to speak to her, sending messages of reluctant acceptance. But over the years, Charles remained unwavering. He made it clear that Camilla was here to stay, and eventually, the Queen had to come to terms with that. By 2005, she reluctantly accepted the reality of their relationship. However, she was careful with how she showed support. She didn't attend their civil wedding ceremony, choosing instead to host a reception afterward. This was a quiet acknowledgement rather than wholehearted and enthusiastic approval. Even with the Queen's reluctant approval, Camilla's path to acceptance was still difficult. The media often scrutinized her, comparing her to Diana and questioning whether she was fit to be by Charles's side. Public opinion polls showed that many people still saw her as a controversial figure. Some even argued that Charles should never be allowed to marry her. Despite all of this, Charles and Camilla moved forward. During a New Year's holiday at Birkhall, his Scottish estate, Charles finally proposed. By then, they had been together openly for years, and the palace had carefully laid the groundwork for their engagement. When the announcement was made in February 2005, it wasn't a complete shock, but it was still a historic moment. The engagement wasn't just about their love, it was about symbolism, and that's where the ring came in. The ring Charles gave Camilla wasn't just any ring. It had belonged to the Queen Mother, one of the most respected and beloved figures in the royal family. The design was a 1930s Art Deco piece with a square-cut diamond surrounded by smaller diamonds, which carried deep significance. And by giving Camilla that ring, Charles wasn't just proposing, he was signaling that she was now part of the royal family in a way that couldn't be denied. Reporters were eager for details. They wanted to know if Charles had gone down on one knee, how Camilla had reacted, and whether there was a grand romantic gesture. But Camilla, who never wanted to seek the spotlight, kept her answers vague. She smiled, dodged the question, and let the ring on her finger do the talking. Moving forward, the road to their wedding wasn't entirely smooth. The ceremony had to be postponed because of Pope John Paul II's funeral, and the location had to be changed from Windsor Castle to the more modest Guildhall. Some royal supporters remained divided, believing that Charles should never have been allowed to remarry. But others saw it as long overdue. On April 9, 2005, Charles and Camilla finally wed. There were no grand processions, no extravagant displays of royal tradition. Instead, it was a quiet civil ceremony followed by a blessing at St. George's Chapel. Camilla looked nervous as she stepped out that day, as if she knew the weight of what she was stepping into. She wasn't stepping into a fairy tale. She was stepping into a reality she had fought years to secure. But when she stood beside Charles with that ring on her finger, it was clear she wasn't just his companion anymore. She was his wife. For Camilla, that ring had come to mean more than just love. It was proof that she had overcome years of doubt, judgment, and resistance. It was the ultimate sign that she had made it. That's why, all these years later, when Charles demanded she return the ring, it wasn't just about jewelry. It was about everything it represented. And the real question wasn't just whether their argument was serious, it was whether Charles was ready to take back the very thing that had legitimized their marriage. Stay tuned to Royal Daily Report for more updates. Don't forget to subscribe. The scandals and the future of Queen Camilla, but here's the most interesting part. Even after Camilla became the queen consort, controversy followed her everywhere. The palace did everything it could to protect her image, but it was impossible to stop the public from talking. Video clip just to say a very, very happy 100th birthday. I can't believe it. For years, people had debated whether she truly belonged in the royal family. And now that she had reached the highest position a queen could hold, the criticism only grew louder. Her relationship with King Charles had already been the subject of public scrutiny for decades, and even though they had been married since 2005, many people still saw her as the other woman. In the story of Charles and Princess Diana, some had accepted her as Charles's wife, but others still believed she should never have been allowed to take on such an important role. That division became even more obvious as new scandals emerged, especially when senior members of the royal family became involved. One of the biggest clashes Camilla faced came from none other than Prince Harry. His relationship with the royal family had been rocky for years, but in 2023, it reached a new level when he released his memoir, Spare. The book revealed deeply personal details about his life, and while it touched on his struggles with the media, his mother's death, and his relationship with his brother William, one of the most explosive accusations was aimed directly at Camilla. In the book, Harry claimed that Camilla had worked behind the scenes to improve her public image, even if it meant sacrificing others in the process. He accused her of leaking stories to the press to make herself look better, and described her as dangerous because of her connections with the media. According to him, she had manipulated her way into the royal family, shaping the narrative so that she would be seen as a kind and loving wife, rather than the woman who had once been at the center of Charles and Diana's marriage scandal. These accusations sent shockwaves through the monarchy. The public had long speculated about Camilla's influence, but hearing these claims directly from Diana's son gave the controversy new weight. Many wondered if there was any truth to what he was saying, while others believed Harry was simply trying to settle personal scores. However, Charles was reportedly devastated by the book. He had spent years trying to rebuild his relationship with Harry. But this public attack on Camilla made it clear that their bond was more strained than ever. Camilla, on the other hand, stayed silent. She had always avoided responding to scandals directly, and this time was no different. And behind the scenes, sources claimed she was furious. She believed Harry had gone too far, and the book only widened the growing gap between him, Charles, and the rest of the family. Even though Harry had stepped back from royal duties, his words still had an impact. The accusations made it nearly impossible for Charles and Camilla to present a united and respectable image, and many wondered if there was any hope for reconciliation between father and son. And, as if the drama with Harry wasn't enough, Camilla's coronation alongside Charles in May 2023 brought even more controversy. The event was supposed to be a moment of unity, a historic occasion that would symbolize the beginning of a new era. But from the start, it was clear that not everyone was on board with celebrating her new title. Prince Harry did attend, but Meghan chose to stay in California, and Harry himself only remained in London for a few hours before flying back home. His brief appearance made it clear that he had no interest in being part of Camilla's big moment. To some, it was proof that the wounds in the family were still fresh, while to others, it was a sign that he wanted to distance himself as much as possible from Camilla's rise to power. At the same time, reports surfaced that Camilla had pushed for her own family to play a bigger role in the coronation. Her grandchildren were given special honors, and some insiders claimed she had ensured they were more involved than certain senior royals. This reportedly made Prince William and Catherine uncomfortable, as they felt Camilla was asserting too much influence. Many critics accused Camilla of trying to reshape the monarchy to fit her own interests, turning it to a blended family where her relatives had more importance than they traditionally would. This backlash was intense, but once again, the palace refused to comment. Another major controversy surrounding the coronation was the sudden change in Camilla's title. When she and Charles married in 2005, the official announcement stated that she would be known as Princess Consort when Charles became king. This decision had been made carefully, as it was meant to respect public sentiment and avoid upsetting those who were still loyal to Princess Diana's memory. However, just before the coronation, the palace quietly dropped Consort from her title, officially calling her Queen Camilla. This change angered many people who saw it as a betrayal of the original agreement. Diana's supporters, in particular, felt it was proof that Camilla had always intended to take the throne, no matter what the public thought. Some royal experts even speculated that Charles had been pressured into making the decision, though he never addressed the issue publicly. The title change also created more tension between Charles and his sons. While William reportedly accepted it as part of his royal duty, Harry saw it as further evidence that Camilla had successfully rewritten history in her favor. To him, it wasn't just a name change, it was a sign that Camilla had solidified her power, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. As Camilla settled into her new role, another controversy emerged, and this time it involved the royal staff. Reports surfaced that she had been behind a major reshuffle at Buckingham Palace, which led to the dismissal of several longtime aides. Some insiders claimed that Camilla wanted to surround herself with people who were loyal to her, ensuring that she had more control over palace operations. One of the most notable departures was Angela Kelly, Queen Elizabeth II's former dresser and close confidant. Angela Kelly had been fiercely protective of the late Queen's legacy, and there were rumors that she and Camilla had never gotten along. After Queen Elizabeth's death, Kelly was quietly moved out of her Windsor home and given a much smaller property elsewhere. Many saw this as a way of Camilla showing that she was now in charge and she wasn't afraid to make big changes. As if all of this weren't enough, another challenge arose that shook the royal family to its core. That was King Charles's health. In early 2024, the palace announced that Charles had been diagnosed with cancer. This news immediately shifted the focus from royal scandals to concerns about the future of the monarchy. With Charles undergoing treatment, Camilla had to take on more royal duties. Some saw this as her moment to prove herself as a true queen, while others worried about what it meant for the monarchy's stability. If Charles's health declined further, Camilla's influence could grow even stronger, especially if William had to step up sooner than expected. Throughout all of this, Camilla remained by Charles's side, just as she had for years. But despite their public displays of unity, whispers about the true state of their marriage continued to circulate. Some insiders claimed that Charles relied heavily on Camilla for emotional support, leaning on her more than ever as he dealt with his health struggles and the pressures of being king. However, others suggested that tensions had been growing behind the scenes, as the stress of their roles took a toll on their relationship. So, will she continue to hold power, or will these new challenges bring her reign as queen to an end? Drop it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video on Royal Daily Report, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive royal family updates. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it. Thank you for watching Royal Daily Report. This has been your host, bringing you the latest and most exclusive royal family news. Stay informed, stay connected, and we'll see you in the next report. Until then, keep following Royal Daily Report for all breaking royal news. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell.